They came back with a package of goods that were, nobody's seen. I don't think anybody's seen. $5.1 trillion. And we are now at about think of this, $16 trillion.
Well, let's face it, guys. Donald Trump is a deal maker. Mark Carney is not. Welcome back to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. Well, it's official, guys. Donald Trump has wiped the floor with Mark Carney. Channels like mine and other channels told you that Mark Carney was not going to be capable of handling or dealing with Donald Trump. We needed someone in there that was going to be worrying about the country. Mark Carney running up and down, flying all over the world, saying, no, we're going to do deals with this country or that country. Donald Trump has secured a deal with Indonesia just recently, as well as a $5.1 trillion investment from 3 countries combined in the Middle East. $5.1 trillion, do you feel that they raised that from wind? Or do you feel that they raised that from solar? Or do you feel that they raised that from oil? $5.1 trillion they can afford to invest because they have that much oil being sold all over the earth, while our country denies those riches and that wealth to this nation. While our country screams that we need to be doing more, we have to have values that are akin to keeping carbon in the ground. Doesn't stop Mark Carney from flying all over the world in his private jet. Doesn't stop Mark Carney from turning the air conditioner on in his house. Nothing stops Mark Carney from doing everything against the carbon. He just wants you to make the sacrifice. Well, Mark Carney says we're going to become an energy superpower anyway. I guess he feels that wind and solar are going to somehow raise $5.1 trillion. However, Donald Trump has secured additional investment in the electricity, energy, and AI generation for the state of Pennsylvania, which is another announcement that he was making. So now we can see that on trade and on energy, Donald Trump is not only beating Canada, but he's beating the Chinese. The Chinese manufacture more electricity than Canada does. Let's listen to some of Donald Trump's announcements as we go through this list of enormous dollar amounts that can only tell you and I as Canadians one thing. And that thing is Mark Carney and the Liberal government are never going to be qualified, capable to handle this problem. And we need people that can solve the concerns of Canadians, not globalists flying all over the world trying to pretend like they're going to solve this problem through trade with Europe.
This afternoon, 20 leading technology and energy companies are announcing more than $92 billion of investments in Pennsylvania. And if you want, we could probably get them up. Let's talk to them right now. But this is a really triumphant day for the people of the Commonwealth and for the United States of America. We're doing things that nobody ever thought possible. As of about a month and a half ago, when we came back from the Middle East, we came back with $5.1 trillion of investments from the 3 countries that I mentioned, and they're great people, great leaders of those countries. But we came back with many, many planes that they are going to build through Boeing. They came back with a package of goods that were, nobody's seen. I don't think anybody's seen. $5.1 trillion. And we are now at about think of this, $16 trillion. And we're at a little bit less than 6 months, but really we're probably at 3 months because it took me a little time to get started, right? So in 3.5, 4 months, let's say, we have about $16 trillion. There's never been anything like that. Today's commitments are ensuring that the future is going to be designed, built, and made right here in Pennsylvania and right here in Pittsburgh, and I have to say right here in the United States of America.
So he secured $92 billion investment in the state of Pennsylvania, the same place that's taking over the steel manufacturing out of Ontario, that's taking over the aluminum manufacturing out of Quebec. By contrast, we can't get Mark Carney to sign a deal with anybody. That's important, right? Because no matter what you tell yourself, the biggest reason that people are not investing in Canada is because they don't have the security they need to bring that kind of money over. The Liberal government is too erratic. The Liberal government is too extreme. They are bad for business. They do not know how to have a free market. Their socialist Marxist concepts means that they need to have control of everything. Donald Trump is telling these companies, yeah, come on down. You can build your own power generating station to power the industry that you're about to fire up. And if you got some excess, we can hook it into the line and we'll send it out through the system. You can make a little money at it. Mark Carney is saying that if you want to build anything in this country, you got to do it with the most expensive steel on earth. So countries are not going to be coming here with that kind of investment. Countries are not going to, they're going to tell themselves that it's less expensive to make it in. They're going to make more money by building it in the United States and simply shipping it across the border. And they'll probably be right, because with every passing minute, the Liberal government becomes more and more desperate. They know that the numbers are bad. They know that the economy is down. They know that inflation is up. They know that we're creeping in on what can only be called economic depression. We are going to have a long, the winter in this country is not going to be super duper good for shopping and all the rest of that. And I hear again Donald Trump saying never say never. And of course, if we had a government in place that was, industry friendly, that would say to themselves, you know what, we got to get rid of this tanker ban because $5.1 trillion is coming out of oil producing countries in the Middle East, and we could be making that money ourselves and putting that money inside of our own country. Might not be able to get the trade deal that we want with other countries, but we are big enough and large enough and diverse enough that we can be making money off of ourselves. And then once that economy gets up and running, we can have other countries will come to us and ask us to come into our market. Of course, that's not going to happen with the Liberal government at the helm, because the Liberal government is not business friendly. The reason we can know, no matter what your politics are, you can know that that's the fact by the way our industry flew out of Canada into the United States, and the way most of the industry was already down there. I mean, you take oil out of it, and the Americans have been selling us quite a lot. The trade imbalance goes the other way, because the industry in the United States is permitted to flourish, and the industry in Canada is held down and ratcheted tight under the control of bureaucracies. There's a lot of examples that I could give you, but I'll give you the housing market, right? You can't build a house unless you pay out nearly $1 million in some places. That is not good for business. That is not industry friendly. That is not free market. That's quite the opposite of that. And that's why people don't want to invest in this country. Like, especially with the Americans saying, you know what, let's go, bring it in. And we don't have any of the leverage that the Americans have. Like, we can't just say to them, you know what, come on in, because the Liberal government is too uptight. The Liberal government is too controlling. The Liberal government is too socialist Marxist. They don't understand how to work a free market. They don't understand that the only way that they're all going to make money is by letting everybody make money. Donald Trump understands that. Donald Trump is not afraid to let other people make money, whereas it seems that the Liberal Party might be terrified that people are going to have freedom and control of their own lives, and that somehow is going to upset their balance. However, Mark Carney did have a response to this, and I just think it's pretty, well, let's watch it and see.
First thing to say is the government has consistently stood up for Canadian workers and businesses throughout these negotiations, will continue to do so. I expect that the discussions will intensify between now and the end of the month, and we'll be working hard on that. At the same time, we need to recognize that the commercial landscape globally has changed. It's changed in a fundamental manner, and we will continue to focus on what we can most control, which is building a strong Canadian economy. And that's part of what we'll be discussing in Cabinet today. And a strong Canadian economy, to be absolutely clear, includes a strong steel industry. It includes a strong Canadian auto industry, a strong Canadian aluminum industry, and copper industry, and others. And we'll be focused on what we can do to support that.
Before we get into the same old tired talking points that the Liberals have been throwing around for months now, I'm surprised he didn't say we don't negotiate in public. Can I just say that hearing the man yelling in the background and hearing the police come through is a perfect example, a soundtrack to the real Canada that's happening outside right now. To the reality on the ground is sirens and anger and hostility and a bunch of people that the government is trying to keep quiet. So I think that it's apropos that Mark Carney's trying to talk to you about how he's going to fix all the problems, and we got one guy yelling his lungs off, and we got the police coming through with their sirens, while Mark Carney is surrounded by a wall of bodyguards, two of them even in the shot. Donald Trump, by contrast, not so much. As we talk about the the same old tired talking points that the Liberal government has been throwing out. We can hear that there's no progress being made, right? Because he doesn't have anything new to offer. There's no progress being made. And now he's taking away a little bit of, he's not saying, oh, the strongest economy in the G7. He's just like, well, a strong Canadian economy. There's no way in the world these guys know what they're doing. I think it's obvious, even if you voted for them, you have to admit that there's no way in the world that these are going to be the people that solve the problem. Donald Trump is following an economic model that is rooted in free market capitalism. And the only way that you can keep up with free market capitalism is to be a free market and a capitalist. You can't be a Marxist. You can't be a socialist. You can't be an activist. You have to be a capitalist. And I don't understand why the Liberal government thinks the Canadians want to struggle. I don't understand why the Liberal government thinks it's okay that food prices and rent prices, the very things that everybody needs. I mean, these are basics, right? We have been worried about food and rent since the beginning of time, right? Or food and a place to live, I should say. But this is basic stuff. I mean, we probably were still crawling around like in the mud, didn't have much language. But when the rain kicked in, we looked for a way out of it. And then we looked for something to eat. So how come the Liberal government can't even do that right? They can't even provide us with inexpensive food and inexpensive places to live. That is how bad their policies, and that is how bad that their influences, and that is how bad how their philosophies are impacting the lives of Canadians, ordinary, everyday people. Now, I get some of you decided that you were going to vote against Donald Trump. Donald Trump has won the day. There's no more, you can't even try to pretend that it's otherwise. $16 trillion worth of investment. Canada might have $14, period. I doubt that we've had that kind of investment, but you get the point I'm trying to make. There's what you just heard out of Mark Carney, did that sound like elbows up? Did that sound like he had a plan? Or did that sound like the same old thing he's been saying for months now as he stalls you and I, as he tries to delay Canadians? Donald Trump just did a massive deal with Indonesia. He signed a treaty with Indonesia. Now, everybody wants, Mark Carney keeps saying, well, we're going to be focused on the end of the month, but everybody keeps overlooking the fact that Donald Trump never agreed to any date until he decided that he didn't want any more of those illegal narcotics crossing the border. And so he said, you got till August 1st to tighten up your border, Mr. Carney, or if you don't tighten it up, I'm going into a 30% tariff increase on your country, on everything coming to your country, because the porous border is allowing the criminal element to flow into my country. Mark Carney and the media, his bought and paid for propaganda arm, are trying to get you to ignore that, or trying to get you to not see that, trying to get you to not understand that. But I am here to tell you that that's really, we got to stay focused, eyes on the prize, right? And that's what was in that last letter. It wasn't about the negotiation. It was about the fact that Mark Carney has not kept up his word on the border, on the securing of the border, and all of the criminal element that is no longer able to use Mexico is now coming in through our border and then zipping down into the United States. Now, how much of that is true? All I can say is that that's what Donald Trump's position is. I mean, he said that part out loud. So that's not even about trade, that August 1st. I mean, I know that's trade that's impacted, but there's no negotiating out of the way of that. He wants the border tightened down, and that's not negotiating. That's results. Let's do something. Make it happen. Produce results. Crack down. Become a country of law and order. Become a country of security. Become a country of safety. None of these things apply to the far left. None of these things apply to the Liberal Party. They want to defund the police. They want, rampant crime running all up and down everywhere, and they want to go after law-abiding gun owners, which is not even the worst part of it when you consider how badly they did. They made a lot of promises in the campaign trail. Not a single one of those things has happened. Not one. Big elbows up talk. And now he's as meek and as timid as a man that got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. He's not producing results for Canadians. He's not even getting tough on Donald Trump. Every time Donald Trump tells him what he wants, he says, yes, sir, right away, sir, no problem, sir. How high can I jump for you, sir? So anything else, anything other than the reality of what's going on, we need to focus on. For those of you that might think that I might not be correct or that might be able to weave and dodge over this August 1st, here is a law that was signed in on July 16th. It is called the Halt Act into law. And they don't want that stuff crossing the border. Now, I've had a look at the bill or the law, now I suppose it's called. Generally, what they're saying is that we're going to reclassify this product, and anybody that's got some of it is going to get a 10-year minimum in prison. 10-year minimum. Now, you'll remember when Pierre Poilievre said that there should be mandatory minimums. Donald Trump is cracking down and trying to bring law and order, security, and safety to his people. And Mark Carney is trying to convince everybody that it's all going to be okay if we do trade with France or do trade with another country or another place around the world. And we leave all of our natural resources that other countries are getting rich off of in the ground and we never touch them. And Lord help us if we try to put in a pipeline or a shovel in the ground. Remember that none of these projects that Mark Carney keeps promising or he can even take a look at until 3 months from now. 3 months, depending on how deep into the month you want to look at it. Even, you know what, I'll be generous and say it's 2 months. So it's 2 months before he can even start to talk about it. While he takes his vacation, while he travels around with his fleet of SUVs demanding that you buy an electric car. It's not just that he can't solve the negotiation with Donald Trump, even though many people all over the world are negotiating successfully with Donald Trump. Many countries, many governments have sealed the deal with Donald Trump. Mark Carney is not one of them. All the while, our internalized economy is going nowhere because Mark Carney is too focused on traveling to France or traveling to England or traveling to any of the other countries. Italy he's gone to. But I don't think he's, focused on how we can get a shovel in the ground right now. I don't think he's focused on any of that. I just wanted everybody to see it for what it is. Donald Trump has won the day. Even if he gave Mark Carney a deal tomorrow, he's not going to give them a deal where it's tariff-free. There can be no deal of tariff-free, guys. Let's grow up. Let's look at it maturely, right? Let's understand that. Because the second that border becomes tariff-free, all of the countries that don't want to pay tariffs will build in Canada and ship it across the border free of charge. There's going to be no car industry. It's not like Canada has its own car manufacturing business. All of those businesses are in the United States of America. And what's Mark Carney going to do? Is he going to put a tariff on the car so that people won't buy it? And then what, we have no cars in Canada? Is that the way that he thinks a business is going to work? Does he feel like that's going to be the win that gets the way to get the economy up and running? Or is he going to turn to Elon Musk and say, oh, you can't sell your electric car in here, even though I want 20% of every car on the lot to have no internal combustion engine whatsoever? When you hear him talk about the steel industry, the aluminum industry, the auto industry, he's just using them as buzzwords. He doesn't understand how to revive those industries. He doesn't know how to save those problems. He doesn't know how to stop those problems and save those industries. Primarily because he doesn't know how to stimulate the economy. They don't know what to do. Everything that they look at, every lens that they have, all of the focus that they put on these is always starts with, how can we make sure that they will always be doing whatever it is we demand? It's not how can we make sure that we can get them paid, get money, get food in their bellies. No. It's going to be how can we keep control of them. That's why nobody wants to come to Canada to invest. And that's why people in Canada can't even get businesses or housing developments up off the ground. Because Marxism is about control. It's not about equality or any of the stuff that they try to convince you of. The lack of control that you see Donald Trump worrying about is allowing his people to become enriched, allowing his people to live a good quality and caliber of living, and revitalizing sectors and states that have been dormant in that country for decades. And all we can do is look across the border and say, geez, I wish I'd have casted my vote the other way. All right, I'm going to wrap here. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I want to thank you for listening. I'll talk to you next time.